You hear the term anti-aging thrown around all the time, right? But what's the real science behind it? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on something called growth hormone peptides. They're a huge topic in longevity science. But the big question is, are they a real breakthrough, or is it all just hype? Let's dig in and find out.
Just a quick note, this explainer is brought to you by our friends at infinitypeptides.com.
So let's start with the million-dollar question. Can we really, truly reverse the clock on aging? I mean, it sounds like something straight out of the movie. And yeah, turning back time might still be science fiction, but what science is doing is figuring out how we can better support our bodies as we get older. And that, right there, is where our conversation really begins.
All right, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at an unseen driver of aging. Then, we'll get into how these peptides actually work. It's all about signals. We'll meet the key players in the peptide world. After that, the big one, separating the hype from the actual evidence. And we'll wrap up with what I think is the most crucial part, the responsible takeaway. Sound good? Let's jump in.
Okay, so first things first. What's actually going on inside our bodies as the years go by? Well, a lot of it starts with a natural process that, honestly, most people have never even heard of. It's called somatopause.
So what is somatopause? It's actually pretty simple. It's just the medical term for the slow, totally natural decline of our body's growth hormone, or GH, production. You see, our GH levels are at their absolute peak around age 20. But after that, they start to drop off, little by little, about 1 to 2% every single year. So you can imagine, by the time someone hits 60, that drop is pretty significant.
And look, this isn't just some abstract number on a lab report. This decline has real-world effects. It's directly linked to a lot of the things we just kind of chalk up to getting older. You know, losing a bit of muscle mass, gaining that stubborn visceral fat around the middle, feeling like it takes forever to recover from a workout, even things like our skin getting thinner, our energy levels dipping, and sleep quality going down. It all connects back. And this is exactly why scientists and doctors started getting really interested in finding ways to maybe influence this whole process.
So that leads us perfectly to our next big point. How in the world do these peptides actually work? The absolute key thing to get here is that they are a signal, not a replacement. Okay, the fancy scientific term is growth hormone secretagogue. That's a mouthful, I know. But all it really means is that it's a compound that sends a message, a signal, to your pituitary gland, telling it to release its own growth hormone. And here's the really crucial part. It makes it happen in a natural, pulsing way, just like your body is supposed to. This is so important because it avoids all the problems you'd get from just flooding your system with a constant, unnatural stream of hormones.
I love this analogy because it makes it so clear. Think of it like this. These peptides gently knock on the door of the pituitary gland. They don't kick the door down with a replacement substance. That's the whole game right there. A gentle prompt, not a forceful replacement. All right, so now that we know how they work, let's meet the two stars of the show. The two peptides you're going to hear about most often in any modern protocol are CJC-1295 and ipamorelin. And you almost never see one without the other. They're like a dynamic duo. So first up, we have CJC-1295. The easiest way to think about this one is as the main on switch. It's basically a lab-made version of a hormone your body already produces called GHRH. It goes right to the pituitary, latches onto the GHRH receptors, and sends a direct signal that says, hey, time to release some growth hormone.
And we're not talking about a weak signal here. This stuff is powerful. There was a top-tier, double-blind, placebo-controlled human study, the gold standard of scientific research, and it showed that CJC-1295 could boost GH levels by 2 to 10 times. That is a massive, undeniable biological effect.
Okay, now for its partner in crime, ipamorelin. This one takes a different route. It works on something called the ghrelin receptor, which you might have heard of in connection with hunger. But, and this is what makes ipamorelin so special, it's incredibly selective. It's like a sniper. It hones in on stimulating GH release without messing with other stuff, like your stress hormone cortisol or making you ravenously hungry. And to really appreciate why ipamorelin is the go-to choice now, you just have to look back at the older generation of peptides, like GHRP6 and GHRP2. I mean, sure they worked, but they were kind of messy. They were like a shotgun blast. They'd often spike cortisol and could make you incredibly hungry. Ipamorelin, on the other hand, is like a surgeon's scalpel. It's just so much more precise, giving you that GH signal with almost none of those unwanted side effects. Okay, so we've established they're really good at getting your body to produce its own GH. But
This is where we have to get really real. This is probably the most important part of our whole chat, separating the wild hype from the hard evidence. So, what do they actually do? And we have to be super clear here. The science suggests these peptides can be fantastic support tools. We're talking about things like helping you hold on to lean muscle, improving how fast you recover, maybe even helping your skin quality over the long haul. But let's be just as clear about what they are not. They are not a magic wand for your face that replaces things like fillers or laser treatments. And they are absolutely 100% not a substitute for the basics: good food, good sleep, and moving your body.
So if you take away just one thing from this whole section, let it be this. Think of them as systematic support tools, not cosmetic miracles. They're designed to work from the inside out, supporting your body's fundamental systems, not just airbrushing the surface.
And that brings us to our final piece of the puzzle. And honestly, it's the most critical one: the responsible takeaway. Because without understanding the proper clinical context, none of this other information matters.
Okay, let's lay the disclaimers out on the table, loud and clear. First, these peptides are not FDA approved for anything related to anti-aging, period. Any use for that purpose is considered off-label, and it absolutely requires a prescription that has to be filled by a special compounding pharmacy. This is not something you just go buy online and mess around with yourself. Physician supervision isn't just a good idea, it is mandatory, non-negotiable.
So what does being responsible actually look like in practice? It means thinking of peptides as the potential last piece of the puzzle, not the first. You have to start with the foundations. First, get your blood work done so you know your baseline. Then you dial in your nutrition and you make sleep a non-negotiable priority. You commit to regular resistance training. Only when you've got all of those pillars locked in should you even begin to have a conversation with a well-informed doctor about whether these might be a fitting tool for your specific situation.
And that really leaves us with one last big idea to chew on. No, these peptides aren't the fountain of youth, but what they do represent is a really interesting shift in how we think about aging. We're moving away from just, treating the symptoms of getting older and moving towards proactively optimizing the biology underneath it all. So the question is this kind of data-driven, systems-level approach the future of what healthy aging really means? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.